Have you ever been called the coffee girl right in the middle of the conference room you just saved from bankruptcy? I have. And trust me, when that person is the new guy with a blood-red tie and a smile so confident he could be selling Florida real estate, you'll want to stick around to watch him bury himself. The best part? He had no idea the coffee girl held the only key to the entire system he was about to destroy. My name is Samantha Vance, but everyone at Nimbus Core Solutions calls me Sam. I've been the infrastructure systems engineer here for 6 years, which in Austin tech years is basically a lifetime. I was the one who built our failover protocols from scratch, the one who stayed up for 72 hours straight during the 2020 ransomware attack, the one who literally saved this company from losing $50 million in client data. But apparently, none of that matters when you're facing a man with a PowerPoint deck and a vocabulary straight out of a Silicon Valley parody. Brent Halford walked into our Monday morning engineering meeting like he owned the place. Which, technically, he did now. Our new IT director, fresh from some marketing role at a startup that sold AI-powered water bottles or something equally ridiculous. His handshake was too firm, his teeth too white, and his tie was this aggressive shade of red that screamed, "I read a book about power dressing once." "Team," he announced, spreading his arms wide like a televangelist. Ready to synergize our digital transformation journey? I watched him set up his laptop, fumbling with the HDMI cable. Maya, our junior engineer, moved to help him, but he waved her off with a patronizing chuckle. "I got this, sweetheart. Been presenting since before you were born." Maya was 32. His presentation was exactly what you'd expect. Lots of circles with arrows, words like paradigm shift and blockchain adjacent, and absolutely zero understanding of our actual infrastructure. He'd taken screenshots of our system architecture from the internal wiki, diagrams I'd created, and added clip art. Actual clip art. There was a cartoon rocket ship next to our database cluster. "Now," Brent said, clicking to a slide titled Streamlining Human Resources. "I notice we have some redundancies in our team structure. For instance," he pointed directly at me, "Sam here seems to be doing a lot of, what would you call it, maintenance work? Keeping the lights on? That's not very innovative, is it?" I felt my jaw clench. "I manage the core infrastructure that handles 2 billion transactions daily." Right, he said, waving his hand dismissively. "But that's just keeping things running. Where's the innovation, the disruption? I mean, any coffee girl could monitor server logs if they knew which buttons to press." The room went silent. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to stop humming. "Coffee girl?" I repeated, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. Brent laughed. That specific laugh of someone who thinks they've just said something clever. "Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive. It's just an expression. Though actually," he snapped his fingers at me. "Sam, would you mind grabbing me a latte from the kitchen? Oat milk, extra foam. Since you're so good at keeping things running smoothly." I stood up slowly, gathering my laptop and notebook. "Actually, Brent, I need to check on something in the server room." "Server room?" He smirked. "Isn't that what we have automation for? Set it and forget it, right?" I paused at the door, turning back to look at him. He was already moving on, explaining how we were going to leverage synergies by migrating everything to his friend's revolutionary cloud platform. "You're absolutely right," I said, keeping my voice light. "It practically runs itself." As I walked down the hallway, I could hear him continuing his presentation, talking about trimming the fat and optimizing headcount. He had no idea that the coffee girl he'd just humiliated was the only person in the building who knew about the Aegis protocol, the emergency recovery system I'd built 3 years ago, completely off the books, after our CEO cheaped out on proper disaster recovery. The hardware token was in my desk drawer, looking like any other USB drive. Nobody else even knew it existed. I documented everything else meticulously, created runbooks for every scenario, trained the team on every system, except that one. Call it paranoia or job security. But I'd kept one ace up my sleeve. Looking back, I should have seen the writing on the wall when Brent started his first day by removing the coffee machine from the break room and replacing it with some organic kombucha dispenser. Anyone who messes with engineers' coffee supply is either stupid or hostile. Turns out, Brent was both. The dismantling of my career happened with surgical precision, like watching someone perform an autopsy on something still breathing. First, Brent revoked my root access. Security best practices, he explained in an all-hands email, though somehow his buddy from the water bottle startup got admin privileges on day one. I discovered this at 2 a.m. during a critical database migration when my credentials suddenly failed. Maya had to finish the job while I sat there, locked out of systems I'd built with my own hands. Then came the Jira massacre. Every ticket I opened got mysteriously reassigned or closed with notes like, not aligned with Q3 digital transformation goals, or redundant with AI automation initiatives. My pull requests sat unreviewed while Brent pushed code directly to production, code that included hard-coded passwords and SQL queries that would make a first-year CS student cringe. I started keeping a notebook, documenting everything in careful detail. October 3rd. Brent changed all server passwords but forgot to update the service accounts, causing 17 applications to fail authentication. October 5th. He deleted the cron jobs that cleared temporary files, claiming they were suspicious scripts. By October 7th, our temp directories were eating 500 GB of disk space. The pettiness escalated. He moved my desk from the engineering pod to a corner by the printer to facilitate equipment management synergy. He removed me from the on-call rotation, a blessing, except he made sure to announce it as Sam needs less stressful duties. He assigned me to asset tagging, which meant walking around with a label maker, putting stickers on monitors and keyboards like I was running a garage sale. You're documenting all this, right? Maya whispered during lunch, glancing around nervously. Every single thing, I said, showing her my notebook. Including his creative server naming convention, she groaned. God, the Disney princess servers. How are we supposed to explain to clients that their financial data runs through Elsa, Ariel, and Cinderella? You forgot about Tinkerbell handling authentication, I added. But the notebook wasn't just for venting. I was mapping every mistake, every vulnerability Brent introduced. He was unraveling 6 years of carefully orchestrated infrastructure like a toddler pulling yarn from a sweater. The load balancers I'd configured to handle traffic spikes, he optimized them by reducing the buffer pools. The backup systems running on a staggered schedule to prevent overlap, he synchronized them all to 3 a.m. because it was neater. The worst part was watching him take credit for systems running smoothly, systems that were only stable because of the safeguards I'd built that he hadn't found yet. He'd send company-wide emails about revolutionary uptime improvements under new leadership, while I was secretly fixing his mistakes through background scripts he didn't know existed. Sam, you could report this, Maya said one afternoon as we watched Brent's latest LinkedIn post, a photo of him pointing at my network diagram on a whiteboard, with the caption, Architecting the Future of FinTech Infrastructure. Innovation, leadership, disrupt or die. Report to whom? I asked. He golfs with the CEO every weekend. They're both members of the same Entrepreneurs Under 40 club. She knew I was right. The boys' club was real, and I wasn't in it. The breaking point came when Brent discovered the failover system I'd built. Not the Aegis protocol, just the standard disaster recovery. Instead of being impressed, he was furious that it wasn't documented in his digital asset register, a Google sheet he'd made everyone fill out. This is exactly the kind of shadow IT I'm talking about, he announced in the next team meeting, pointing at me. Sam's been running unauthorized systems, probably mining Bitcoin on company servers for all we know. It's a disaster recovery system, I said calmly. It's saved us 4 times in the past 2 years. Unauthorized is unauthorized, he shot back. We need transparency, not secret kingdoms. That night, I made a decision. I pulled the Aegis Protocol USB from my desk drawer and slipped it into my purse. It looked like any other flash drive, scratched, with a faded logo from a conference 3 years ago. Nobody would ever suspect it contained the keys to an entirely separate recovery system, running on hardware Brent didn't even know we owned. In a data center he'd dismissed as legacy overhead. I updated my resume that weekend, but I didn't send it anywhere. Part of me knew what was coming. Brent was building a house of cards on top of infrastructure he didn't understand, removing the supports one by one. All I had to do was wait and watch, and keep very careful notes. The email arrived at 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday, not even the courtesy of a Friday to cushion the blow. Effective immediately, your position has been eliminated as part of our digital transformation initiative. Please surrender your badge and equipment to security by 5:01 p.m. Your personal items will be mailed to your home address. That was it. 6 years reduced to 3 sentences. No exit interview, no transition documentation request. Nothing for me to sign. Just a cold, automated message probably generated by some HR template Brent found online. I didn't make a scene. That's what he expected, the emotional woman causing drama, validating his decision. Instead, I calmly picked up my coffee mug, the one that said, "I void warranties," slipped on my jacket, and tucked the Aegis USB into my pocket where it had lived for the past week. Security was apologetic. Tom, the guard who'd buzzed me in every morning for 6 years, couldn't meet my eyes. "This is bullshit, Sam," he muttered as I handed over my badge. "It's fine, Tom," I said, meaning it. "Take care of yourself." I didn't pack anything else. Let them mail me the desk plants and the Employee Excellence Awards. The only thing that mattered was already in my pocket. That evening, Brent's LinkedIn exploded with victory. A long post about making tough decisions and building teams for the future, not the past. He'd included a photo of the engineering floor with everyone still at their desks, heads down, probably terrified they were next. The caption read, "Cleaned house today. Sometimes you have to remove the old pipes to stop the leaks." Leadership, tough decisions, innovation, mindset. The comments were a mix of tech bros congratulating him on his courage and a few anonymous accounts asking what happened to the engineer who'd saved the company multiple times. Those comments disappeared within an hour. But then came his masterstroke of ego, a Medium article titled, "Why I Had to Fire My Star Engineer." Without naming me, he painted a picture of a toxic gatekeeper who hoarded knowledge and resisted change. He wrote about my unauthorized systems and how I'd built unnecessarily complex infrastructure to ensure job security. "The modern tech leader," he wrote, "must be willing to cut away the old guard who cling to outdated methods like physical servers and manual processes. The future is automated, cloud-native, and doesn't require coffee-sipping server babysitters." Coffee again. He really couldn't let that go. Maya texted me that night. "Everyone's freaking out. He's deleted your documentation from the wiki and says he's rebuilding from first principles. He doesn't even know what a kernel panic is. Sam, he asked if we could just download more RAM." I didn't respond. What was there to say? Instead, I watched from the outside. It's amazing what you can see when you still have read-only access to a forgotten monitoring dashboard you set up 3 years ago under a service account nobody remembers exists. The system metrics told a story Brent would never understand. CPU usage spiking randomly as his optimized code created memory leaks. Disk I/O churning as his synchronized backups competed for resources. Network latency creeping up as his Disney Princess servers struggled with connection pools he'd streamlined. The signs were all there, like watching someone play Jenga while drunk and blindfolded. 2 weeks after my firing, Brent posted another LinkedIn update, a photo of him at a conference, presenting my network architecture diagram, now labeled Halford Infrastructure Model TM, to a room full of people. Sharing my innovative approach to financial data systems at FinTech Forward 2025. Thought leader. Innovation. Disruption. The irony was beautiful. He was literally presenting a system he didn't understand, couldn't maintain, and had already started destroying. It was like watching someone give a TED Talk about flying while actively sawing off the airplane wings. Maya kept me updated through carefully worded texts. The thing you said would happen, it's happening. The backup thing is making weird noises. He says error messages are just suggestions. I spent my days ostensibly job hunting, but really, I was waiting. The Aegis USB sat in my home office drawer next to my coffee mug, like Chekhov's gun in the first act. I'd built that fail-safe after the 2020 attack when I realized our executives would always choose cost-cutting over security. It was my insurance policy. A completely separate recovery system running on decommissioned hardware in our old data center in Cedar Park. The one Brent called that expensive storage closet. 3 weeks after my departure, Brent announced he'd successfully deprecated legacy systems and achieved 50% cost reduction in infrastructure overhead. Translation: he'd turned off everything he didn't understand, which was most of it. The countdown had begun. All the dominoes were lined up perfectly. I made myself a coffee, real coffee, not kombucha, and waited for physics to take over. You can't fight gravity. And you can't fix stupid. But you can definitely watch it fall. The first cracks appeared like hairline fractures in glass, barely visible unless you knew where to look. It started with the financial reports. Our clients began noticing discrepancies, duplicate transactions appearing randomly, decimal points shifting in calculation summaries, timestamps that didn't match between systems, small things that Brent dismissed as display bugs in his all-hands emails. Our core systems are rock solid, he assured everyone. These are just UI glitches that our amazing team will polish out. Maya's texts grew more frantic. Sam, the deduplication script you wrote, he deleted it because it was unnecessarily complex. Claims the database handles it natively. Spoiler, it doesn't. Then came the DNS wobbles. Every few hours, the load balancers would lose their minds for about 30 seconds, routing traffic to servers that didn't exist. Brent's solution: restart them manually each time. He even created a roster for engineers to take turns clicking the restart button, calling it proactive system management. I sat in my home office, watching my hidden dashboard like a cardiac monitor on a dying patient. The system metrics were telling a story of slow-motion catastrophe. Memory usage climbing steadily because Brent had disabled the garbage collection routines. They were slowing things down. Database connection pools maxing out because he'd removed the timeout limits. Why would we want to disconnect users? The Disney Princess servers were having a full revolt. Elsa is freezing every 2 hours, Maya texted one evening. I wish I was joking. The authentication server, Tinkerbell, was the worst. Brent had tried to optimize the login process by removing what he called redundant verification steps. What he'd actually done was strip out the token validation that prevented session hijacking. We were one smart hacker away from a complete breach, and he was posting on LinkedIn about streamlining user experience through simplified security. But the real artistry of his incompetence showed in how he handled the problems. Instead of investigating root causes, he threw band-aids at symptoms. Scripts to restart frozen services, more scripts to clear logs that were taking up too much space, also known as evidence. He even hired his buddy's consulting firm to build a email-powered monitoring solution that mostly just sent alerts saying everything is fine, regardless of actual system state. 3 weeks into the degradation, a major client called an emergency meeting. Their CFO had noticed that their real-time transaction feed was showing data from 3 days ago. Brent's response was a masterclass in corporate gaslighting. That's actually a feature, not a bug. We're implementing an innovative time delay security protocol to prevent flash fraud. The CFO's response was less enthusiastic. Are you seriously telling me you're intentionally showing us old data and calling it security? Brent's LinkedIn that night. Sometimes clients don't understand innovation until they see the results. Visionary leadership. Disruptive thinking. Meanwhile, the technical debt was compounding exponentially. Every fix Brent implemented created 3 new problems. He'd patched a memory leak by increasing swap space, not realizing he'd pointed it at the same drive hosting the database. Now every memory spike caused database performance to tank. His solution? Add more RAM to the virtual machines without increasing the host allocation. He thinks RAM is like a garden hose. Maya texted, just turn it up higher. The cascade accelerated when Brent decided to modernize the backup system. He'd discovered we were wasting money on redundant backups, storing data in 3 different locations. Why do we need 3 copies of everything? He'd asked in a meeting. That's like keeping 3 spare tires in your car. So he consolidated everything into one location. His friend's revolutionary cloud platform, specifically, the one that promised infinite storage for a flat rate, which anyone with a brain knows means will compress your data until it screams. I watched the backup jobs through my dashboard. What used to take 2 hours now took 18. Restoration tests that should run in minutes were timing out after hours. The compression ratios were so aggressive that some backups were probably just sophisticated random number generators at this point. But my favorite mistake, the one that showed just how deeply Brent didn't understand our infrastructure, was when he renamed the system variables. All of them. To match his innovative naming convention. Variables like max connections became Brent Connect Max, and timeout seconds became time to awesome. The legacy code, which referenced the old variable names, started pulling null values. Services that had run flawlessly for years began making decisions based on nothing. It was like replacing all the street signs in a city with interpretive dance instructions. The claims processing system just approved every single pending claim. Maya texted on a Friday afternoon. Millions of dollars. He says it's a generous glitch that will build customer loyalty. That weekend, Brent posted photos from a leadership retreat in Cabo. Recharging the innovation batteries with fellow disruptors. The best leaders know when to step back and let their systems run themselves. Work smart. Digital nomad. Trust the process. Trust the process. The process was now held together with digital duct tape and the prayers of junior engineers working 20-hour days to keep things limping along. I pulled out the Aegis USB and turned it over in my hands, still waiting. The system hadn't completely collapsed yet. It was more like a slow bleed. Painful, but not immediately fatal. But Monday was coming. And according to my dashboard, Brent had scheduled a major infrastructure optimization for Sunday night. He was about to optimize himself straight into catastrophe. Monday, 9:47 a.m. Peak trading hours. $2 billion flowing through our systems every minute. Then, nothing. The first call came from Goldman Sachs, then Morgan Stanley, then every major financial institution on the Eastern Seaboard. Nimbus Core Solutions had gone completely dark. Not slow, not glitchy. Gone. Like someone had reached into the internet and plucked us out of existence. My phone exploded with notifications. Former colleagues, clients who still had my number, even reporters who'd covered our 2020 recovery. But the best message was from Maya. DEFCON 1. Brent just went live on our emergency broadcast channel. You need to see this. I pulled up the stream on my laptop. There was Brent, sweating through his signature red tie, standing in our main conference room with the crisis management team. Someone had made the catastrophic decision to broadcast this to all clients simultaneously, probably Brent, thinking transparency would buy trust. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice cracking slightly. We're experiencing a temporary synchronization issue with our primary systems. The client chat exploded. Temporary? Where is our data? This is a 10 minutes per hour problem, Brent continued, shuffling papers he clearly hadn't read. Our innovative cloud infrastructure is recalibrating. The Disney server architecture, our named server architecture is conducting an automatic optimization. Did he just say Disney servers? Someone typed in chat. Is Tinkerbell down? Another added, and I nearly spit out my coffee. Some client had been paying attention. The CEO, Richard Blackstone, appeared on screen, pushing Brent aside with barely concealed fury. Where's the disaster recovery? Where's the failover system? We're activating it now. Brent stammered. The backup restoration from our cloud partner should begin momentarily. Should? Richard's face was purple. Should? Maya texted me. The backups are corrupted. Compression destroyed them. He's trying to restore from nothing. It's like watching someone perform CPR on a skeleton. The stream descended into chaos. Engineers running past in the background, someone yelling about kernel panics. The distinct sound of a server room alarm that meant temperature critical, apparently. Brent's optimization had included reducing cooling to save energy. Then I heard it. The question that changed everything. Where's Sam? It was Jennifer Wu, CTO of one of our biggest clients. Where's the woman who saved you in 2020? The chat lit up. Get Sam. Bring back the coffee girl. We want Sam. Richard turned to Brent. Where is Samantha Vance? Brent's face went through several expressions: confusion, recognition, then panic. She was let go. Part of the restructuring. You fired her? Jennifer's voice cut through the stream. You fired the only person who understood your infrastructure? She was redundant, Brent protested. Her methods were outdated. She was gatekeeping. She was keeping the gates from burning down, someone shouted off camera. Sounded like Tom from security. Richard grabbed Brent by the shoulders. Call her, now. I don't have her number. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the chat stopped moving. Maya, bless her, spoke up. I do. My phone rang 30 seconds later. I let it go to voicemail, watching the stream as Maya held her phone up, showing my name on the declined call. She's not answering, Maya said, and I could see her trying not to smile. Richard took the phone and called himself. This time, I picked up on speaker, making sure my coffee maker was loud in the background. Sam? Richard's voice was desperate. Sam, we need you. The entire system is down. Please, I know, Brent. I know things ended badly, but... Hello? Richard, I said calmly. I'm watching the stream. Interesting approach to crisis management. Can you help us? I took a long sip of coffee, letting them hear it. That depends. Is Brent still making the technical decisions? Everyone turned to look at Brent, who was backing toward the door. Not anymore, Richard said firmly. Brent, you're done. Security will escort you out. This is sabotage, Brent sputtered. She did something. She planted something. The only thing I planted, I said, loud enough for the stream to hear, was documentation of every mistake you were about to make. Check your email from 3 weeks ago. Richard, subject line, for when he crashes everything. Richard's assistant pulled it up on screen. 50 pages of detailed predictions about exactly how Brent would destroy the infrastructure, dated the day after I was fired. The chat went wild. She knew. Queen. Prophet. Give her whatever she wants. Sam, Richard said quietly, what do you need? First, I need Brent to admit, on this stream, that he has no idea what he's doing. Brent's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The entire room stared at him. I might have underestimated the complexity. No, I interrupted. The full admission. Tell them about the Disney princesses. His face crumbled. I renamed the servers after Disney princesses. I deleted critical scripts I didn't understand. I called Sam the coffee girl when she was the only one keeping this place running. And I'm an idiot who destroyed everything because I thought PowerPoint skills meant I understood infrastructure. The chat was moving so fast it was just a blur of vindication and coffee cup emojis. Good, I said. Now get out of my conference room. Security actually applauded as they led him out. Sam, Richard pleaded, will you come back? I'm already here, I said. But not at headquarters. I'm at the Cedar Park facility, the one Brent called an expensive storage closet. There's nothing there but old servers. There's everything there, I corrected. Give me 10 minutes. I hung up and looked at the Aegis USB in my hand. Time to show them what a real disaster recovery system looked like. The coffee girl was about to save their asses. Again. The Cedar Park facility sat on the outskirts of Austin like a forgotten monument to prudent paranoia. As I badged in with my old access code, the one I'd never surrendered because nobody asked, the familiar hum of properly cooled servers greeted me like an old friend. The security guard at the desk did a double take. "Sam, thought you were dead? Fired? Replaced by artificial intelligence?" I suggested, walking past him toward the server room. "All of the above, but apparently, resurrection is needed." The heavy door hissed open, revealing rows of what Brent had dismissed as legacy equipment. In reality, it was $2 million worth of decommissioned but perfectly functional servers I'd convinced facilities to keep for parts. They weren't pretty, mismatched Dell and HP units from 3 different generations, but they were mine. More importantly, they were invisible to Brent's digital asset register. I moved to the terminal at the end of row 3, a dusty monitor that looked like it belonged in a museum. The system booted with the Nimbus Core logo from 2019, before the redesign, before Brent, before everything went to hell. I pulled out the Aegis USB and held it for a moment. 3 years ago, after we'd barely survived the ransomware attack with our official disaster recovery system failing spectacularly, I'd spent my own weekend here. No overtime pay, no recognition, just me and the absolute certainty that our leadership would never invest in proper redundancy. So I built my own. The Aegis protocol wasn't just a backup. It was a complete shadow infrastructure. Every critical system had a dormant twin here, updating silently through encrypted channels I'd hidden in regular maintenance traffic. Brent could destroy the primary systems all he wanted. Their ghosts lived here, waiting. I inserted the USB. The screen flickered, then displayed a single prompt. "Activation phrase?" I typed. The coffee girl remembers everything. The room came alive. Servers that had been in standby mode began spinning up, lights blinking in sequence like dominoes falling in reverse. The terminal showed system after system coming online. Authentication, database clusters, transaction processing, client APIs. All running versions from 3 weeks ago, before Brent's optimizations. My phone buzzed. "Maya, something's happening." The monitoring board just lit up with systems we can't see. I pulled up the live stream on my phone while working. The conference room was in chaos. Engineers pointing at screens showing impossible readings. Services running that weren't supposed to exist. Traffic routing through pathways that weren't in any documentation. "Richard," I called him directly, putting him on speaker while I typed. "I need you to do exactly what I say. Have someone physically disconnect the primary data center from the network. Everything. Pull the cables." "What?" "But that will kill the corrupt systems." "Yes. Do it now." On the stream, I watched Richard bark the order. Engineers ran toward the main server room. The client chat was going insane. "What's happening? Is this part of the recovery? Who is running this?" "Done," Richard confirmed. "We're completely offline." "Good. Now watch." I executed the failover sequence. On the stream, every dead monitor in the conference room suddenly displayed the Nimbus Core logo, the old one. Then, one by one, services began appearing. Clean services, working services. Services that actually knew what their variables were supposed to be called. The client chat exploded. "We're back." Transactions flowing. All data intact. But I wasn't done. The Aegis protocol had one more feature I'd built after watching too many executives take credit for engineers' work. I activated the audit log broadcast, a complete record of every action taken on the system for the past 6 months, displaying on the main conference room screen for all clients to see. They watched Brent's destruction and fast forward, every deleted script, every renamed variable, every optimization that broke something. They saw my fixes running in the background, invisible, keeping things alive until he finally destroyed even those. They saw the 57 hours I'd worked the weekend before my firing, documenting everything, preparing for this exact moment. "My God," Jennifer Wu's voice came through the stream. She knew. She knew he'd destroy everything, and she built a bunker. The data center temperature reading caught my eye, rising fast. These old servers ran hot, and the cooling here was minimal. I had maybe 20 minutes before thermal shutdown. Richard, I said, I can keep you running for about 15 more minutes from here. That's enough time to restore the primary systems from the Aegis mirror. But I need a team who actually understands infrastructure. Anything. What do you need? Maya, Kevin, and David from the original team. Put them on. The next 15 minutes were a symphony of coordinated chaos. 3 engineers following my instructions while I orchestrated from a facility that didn't officially exist, using systems that weren't supposed to be there, saving a company that had thrown me away like garbage. Final sync complete, Maya announced. Primary systems are clean and running. I initiated the handover, watching my hidden servers gradually transfer control back to the primary data center. As the last connection switched over, I pulled the Aegis USB out and pocketed it. Sam. Richard's voice was quiet. The board is here. They want to talk to you. On the stream, I could see 5 very expensive suits surrounding the conference table, all staring at the camera. Ms. Vance, the board chairman began, what you've just done, we'd like to discuss your terms for returning. I drove back to headquarters, taking my time. Let them sweat a little longer. The Aegis USB sat in my pocket like a loaded gun with 1 bullet left. When I walked into the conference room, still wearing jeans and the old startup t-shirt I'd thrown on that morning, the contrast with the room full of suits was almost comical. The live stream was still running. Thousands of clients watching. Good. Ms. Vance, the chairman started, but I held up my hand and moved to the main terminal. First, let me show you something. I pulled up the system dashboard on the main screen. Green lights across the board, but I knew better. With a few keystrokes, I revealed the real view, the one showing all of Brent's lingering disasters like infected wounds. You're running at 80% capacity, I said, not looking at them. The primary systems are stable, but fragile. Brent's Disney princess naming convention is still there, confusing every automated process. The database indexes are corrupted, but functional. The backup system is essentially fiction. Those compressed files are unrecoverable garbage. I turned to face them, camera included. The 20% that's missing, that's in the Aegis protocol, still running in Cedar Park, still the only thing between you and complete system failure. What do you want? Richard asked quietly. I pulled out the USB and set it on the table. This contains the complete Aegis activation protocol. Without it, you have maybe 6 weeks before the primary systems degrade beyond recovery. With it, I can restore full functionality in 3 days. The board members exchanged glances. The chairman cleared his throat. Name your price. Chief Technology Officer, I said simply. Not IT Director, not Infrastructure Manager. CTO, reporting directly to the board, not Richard. Richard started to protest, but the chairman silenced him with a look. And? Because there was always an and with boards like this. 3 times my previous salary. Full equity restoration plus the grants I would have received if I hadn't been fired. And a written apology from the board for allowing Brent's hiring and my termination, posted publicly. That's, one board member started. Reasonable. Jennifer Wu's voice cut through from the client chat. In fact, it's generous. She could ask for 10 times that and we'd tell you to pay it. The client chat lit up with agreements. Pay her. Give her the company. CTO or we walk. But I wasn't done. I typed 3 commands, and the system capacity dropped to 60%. What did you just do? Richard gasped. Showed you what happens in 72 hours without maintenance, I said. I can type 3 more commands and make it 30%, 3 more after that, and you're dark again. That's extortion, Richard sputtered. No, I said calmly. Extortion would be demanding payment to fix problems I created. I'm offering to fix problems you created. There's a difference. I looked directly at the camera, addressing the clients. Every one of you has my direct number from the 2020 incident. If the board doesn't agree to my terms, I'll be happy to consult on migrating your business to our competitors. I'm sure they'd love to hear how Nimbus Corps treats the engineers who actually keep the lights on. The chairman's face was stone. You're threatening us? I'm establishing my value, I corrected. The same value you let Brent throw away because he had a good PowerPoint deck and a firm handshake. Maya appeared in the doorway. Sam, we're down to 55%. The primary databases are starting to throw errors. I shrugged. Your move, board. The 5 suits huddled together, whispering frantically. The client chat was in full revolt. Decide now. Every minute costs us millions. She's the only one who can fix this. Finally, the chairman stood. We accept your terms, all of them. In writing, I said. Now. On the live stream. The legal team was called in. Within 10 minutes, they'd drafted a basic agreement. I made them read it aloud on stream. Every clause, every number. The chat celebrated with coffee cup emojis and long live the Queen messages. Only then did I insert the Aegis USB and begin typing. The board watched in tense silence as I pulled up terminal after terminal, entering commands that looked like arcane spells to them, but were really just 3 years of preparation paying off. Maya, I called out. Initiate the architecture restoration from Aegis Backup 7. Running, she confirmed. Kevin, kill all processes with Brent in the variable name. With pleasure, came his response. 37 processes terminated. David, restore the original cron jobs from the shadow copies. Already on it. Line by line, percentage by percentage, I brought Nimbus Corps back from the dead. The Disney princesses were banished, replaced with proper server names. The compressed backups were purged, replaced with real redundancy. The chaos Brent had introduced was methodically unwound like untangling Christmas lights. At 78% capacity, I stopped. The last 20%, I said, looking at the board. Happens when I see the signed contracts and the public apology. The chairman nodded to Richard, who looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Draft it now. As Richard typed the apology, admitting the board's failure in hiring and leadership, I allowed myself a small smile. The coffee girl was about to become their boss. The moment Richard hit post on the public apology, I pushed the final command. The system dashboard bloomed into full green, 100% capacity. All systems optimal. The client chat erupted in celebration, but I was already pulling the Aegis USB from the terminal. Your infrastructure is fully restored, I announced to the room. Better than it was before Brent touched it. The chairman stood and extended his hand. Welcome back, CTO Vance. I didn't take it. Not yet. Instead, I held up the USB one last time, making sure the camera caught it clearly. This stays with me, I said. The Aegis protocol remains under my personal control. Consider it insurance that you'll never treat your engineering talent as disposable again. That's not, Richard started, non-negotiable. I cut him off. Unless you'd like me to demonstrate what happens when I pull this key while the systems are running. The board exchanged nervous glances. They knew they had no choice. Agreed, the chairman said quietly. I pocketed the USB and finally shook his hand. Now, let's talk about rebuilding the engineering team. We'll need to hire back everyone Brent drove away, with full back pay and apologies. Over the next hour, as the live stream continued, I laid out my vision for Nimbus Corps' future. Real redundancy, proper documentation. Engineers treated as the critical resources they were, not coffee-fetching servants. The client chat was fully engaged, some even offering to poach talent for us from their own contacts. As the meeting wrapped up, someone in the chat asked, "What happened to Brent?" Richard pulled up his LinkedIn. Brent's latest post, from 30 minutes ago, showed him announcing his new venture, disrupting the blockchain-powered kombucha space, looking for investors who understand true innovation. Never settle. Phoenix. Rising from ashes. The chat's response was brutal and immediate. Screenshots of his Nimbus Corps disaster were being posted in his comments. His innovative Disney princess servers had already become a meme. Someone had even created a days since Brent destroyed infrastructure counter website. I closed my laptop and looked around the conference room, my conference room now. Maya was grinning. Kevin and David were already planning the real cleanup that would take weeks. Tom from security gave me a thumbs up from the doorway. One last thing, I said to the board. The coffee machine in the break room. The real one, not the kombucha dispenser. Already being installed, the chairman assured me. Italian espresso machine, top of the line. Good. I stood to leave, then paused. Oh, and gentlemen, the next time someone calls your lead engineer a coffee girl, maybe don't wait until your company is on fire to realize she's the one holding the water. I walked out of that conference room with my head high, the Aegis USB secure in my pocket, and the satisfying knowledge that somewhere, Brent was trying to convince people that kombucha could be revolutionary, while his tech career smoldered in ruins behind him. The client chat's final message, from Jennifer Wu, summed it up perfectly. The queen doesn't need a castle. The castle needs a queen. That night, I sat in my home office, looking at the USB that had changed everything. It wasn't about revenge, really. It was about respect, about knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You destroyed me. Brent. I typed back. No, you destroyed yourself. I just refused to clean up your mess for free. Then I blocked his number, made myself a perfect cup of coffee, real coffee, and got to work rebuilding what he'd burned down. Because that's what real engineers do. We build things. We fix things. We save things. And sometimes, when someone mistakes our quiet competence for weakness, we remind them why they hired us in the first place. The Aegis USB sits in my CTO office safe now, right next to my coffee mug. Some call it paranoid to keep a doomsday key. I call it job security. The board calls it whatever I tell them to. After all, I'm not the coffee girl anymore. I'm the woman who holds the keys to the kingdom, and the kingdom knows it. Thank you so much for listening to this story of sweet tech revenge. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below, and let's connect. Whether you're tuning in during your commute, at work, or just relaxing at home, I appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed this tale of the coffee girl who became CTO, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever had a similar experience with an incompetent boss? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories.